Jets fired. Nuclear plant hit. U.S. troops pulled back. And China whispered to Trump, Putin will regret this. This isn't theory. This isn't a drill. This happened this week, and it's all connected. NATO just opened fire for real. Not a drill, not a simulation. Live missiles left the wings of a fighter jet, and the target went down. It sounds like the opening of a war movie trailer, but this happened on the 19th of May over Estonia. And what's chilling is that this isn't about one drone. It's about a pattern, a message, about how close we are to a red line that once crossed, nobody can walk back. Picture this. You're on radar duty in Tallinn, and the alarm blares. An unknown object is coming in from the east, so protocol kicks in. A NATO F-16 on standby in Romania scrambles, and within minutes it's over Estonia. No negotiations, just one missile, and the drone is gone. Estonia called it a first in their history. The drone came from the direction of Russia, but the identity was messy. Ukraine said it was probably theirs, on a mission, but off course because of signal jamming. And that phrase, signal jamming, is the key. Estonia and Kyiv accuse Russia of GPS spoofing, making it look like the drone was over Poland when it was actually inside Estonian airspace. If true, this isn't an accident, it's high-level provocation. Imagine throwing a rock at your neighbor's window but making it look like it came from someone else's house. If the neighbor retaliates, the wrong person gets hit first. But Estonia's reaction wasn't that of a victim. They went public and said Ukraine has every right to strike Russian military targets. They said this is what happens in war, and they even promised closer cooperation with Kyiv to boost air defense and anti-drone capability. Moscow didn't stay quiet. Russia's Foreign Intelligence Service released a long statement, and it was heated. They claimed Kyiv is preparing strikes deep inside Russia, launching from Latvian territory, and said Latvia has opened its bases for the attacks. And then came the line that made people pause. The coordinates of decision-making centers in Latvia are well known, and that country's NATO membership will not protect terrorist accomplices from just punishment. Latvia's reply was short. Russia is lying again. This is a classic disinformation campaign. But think about it. If Russia's claim is true, NATO is being tested. How far will the alliance go to defend a small country if Russia says it was only responding to an attack launched from there? And if it's a lie, then Russia is playing a narrative game to split the Baltics, Ukraine, and NATO. While the Baltic drama plays out, another time bomb is ticking in the Middle East. Moscow suddenly stepped in for Iran. Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov went on record saying Iran has every right to enrich uranium for peaceful energy, with no conditions and no extra demands. That sounds normal unless you know the context. The IAEA said that before the June 25 strikes, Iran had stockpiled 440 kilograms of uranium enriched to 60%, which is way above what you need for civilian power. And now the IAEA can't access parts of Iran's facilities, so they don't know how much is left or where it is. On the other side, the U.S. is negotiating. Trump said there's a very good chance of a new deal, but the U.S. demand is hard. Stop enrichment for 20 years and ship all enriched material out of the country. Iran said no. They want compensation for the attacks they've suffered, plus security guarantees and recognition of their rights in the Strait of Hormuz. Trump even admitted he delayed a planned military strike on Iran after allies in the Middle East asked him to. But he also said if diplomacy fails, the military option is still on the table. So you have two paths. One is diplomacy, walking a line thinner than a thread, and the other is military action. And once you pull that trigger, nobody knows where it stops. And Russia is now standing behind Iran, saying we're ready to help negotiate if asked. The question is, help for peace or help to keep the U.S. from acting freely? That's not the end of it, because in Abu Dhabi, something that's never happened before just happened. A drone hit the Barakah nuclear plant. Barakah isn't small, it's the UAE's largest nuclear plant, and it can cover about a quarter of the country's electricity needs. The drone came from the west, hit a power generator outside the reactor core, and caused a fire. Luckily, there was no radiation leak, and the plant's core safety systems reportedly worked fine. The IAEA confirmed radiation levels are normal, but they also said any incident near a nuclear site is dangerous, because once something goes wrong, the impact isn't local anymore. What's suspicious is the timing. It happened right in the middle of high tension over Iran, and on the same day, Saudi Arabia said it intercepted drones coming from Iraqi airspace. Nobody claimed responsibility, but you know how this game works. If you want to panic the world without starting an open war, you hit energy infrastructure, you hit nuclear sites, and you make everyone think twice before bombing you back because of the fear of radiation. Now imagine you're a defense official in Washington, juggling Russia, Iran, drones in the Gulf, and then a report lands from Poland. The Pentagon says the rotation of 4,000 U.S. troops to Poland is paused as part of a broader review, not a sudden decision. But Poland's defense minister immediately pushed back, saying this has nothing to do with Poland. It's just a change in U.S. force structure in Europe. The problem is, U.S. Congress wasn't consulted, and Republican lawmakers called it reprehensible, saying Poland was caught off guard. The unit affected was the 2nd Armored Brigade Combat Team of the 1st Cavalry Division out of Fort Hood, Texas. They were supposed to replace the outgoing brigade, and some troops were already in Poland, with some equipment already in European ports. The Pentagon says this isn't a full withdrawal, just a paused rotation. Total U.S. troop reduction in Europe is estimated at around 5,000, including a long-range systems battalion that was supposed to go to Germany. But the message in Warsaw is clear. They want a permanent presence, not just rotations, because with rotations, every time there's a policy shift in Washington, they're the ones holding their breath. The question now is this a small budget adjustment or the start of America slowly stepping back from Eastern Europe? Because if the U.S. steps back, who fills that gap? There are only two answers: the rest of NATO or Russia. And in the middle of all this, a leak dropped that, if true, could shift the global balance. The Financial Times reported that Xi Jinping told Trump during a visit to Beijing that Putin may come to regret launching the war in Ukraine. China denied it immediately, calling it completely fabricated, and the White House stayed silent. But if you look at the pattern, there's logic there. China hasn't publicly condemned Russia since the war started. They call for peace. But at the same time, their trade with Russia has exploded, with cheap energy, tech, and political cover. But China doesn't want to be collateral damage. They don't want this war to crash the global economy, because they'd lose the most. So if Xi really said that to Trump, it's a signal. We'll still back you economically, Putin. But if you go too far, don't expect us to burn with you. What's interesting is that this leak came right as Putin was in Beijing for his 25th visit, and no other foreign leader has been that close to Xi in the last decade. And the Financial Times added another detail, saying Trump suggested a three-way arrangement between the US, China, and Russia to counter the International Criminal Court, because he argued their interests align there. I don't know if that's true, but if it is, you can see the direction. The world is being redrawn, not West versus East anymore, but blocks of interest that can shift any time depending on who offers the better deal. So let's put it together. In 1 week, you have 4 hotspots. First, NATO shoots down a drone over Estonia, and Russia responds with threats to Latvia. Second, Russia backs Iran's nuclear program, and the U.S. threatens strikes if diplomacy fails. Third, a nuclear plant in the UAE is hit by a drone, and no one claims it, but everyone suspects. Fourth, the U.S. pauses troop deployment to Poland, and Eastern Europe holds its breath. And above all of it, there's a chance China is recalculating how much it wants to back Russia. None of this happens in a vacuum. It happens because the war in Ukraine isn't over. And whenever there's a war, other countries see it as an opportunity to test weapons, to test narratives, to test how far they can push the line. Now I want to ask you, if you were in Putin's position, what would you do? Would you keep playing on every red line at once, betting that the West gets tired first? Or would you pull back a step, protect the relationship with China, and focus on finishing Ukraine first? If you were in Biden's shoes, or whoever becomes U.S. president next, would you keep troops in Eastern Europe, or would you say, enough, this is Europe's problem, let Europe handle it? And if you were an ordinary citizen in Tallinn, Warsaw, or Abu Dhabi, how would it feel knowing that one wrong decision from someone in Moscow or Washington could change your life overnight? This isn't theory. This is happening right now. And because YouTube's algorithm loves controversy, I'm sure the comment section is about to split in two. Some will say, Russia needs to be hit hard so they learn. Some will say, NATO is provoking this. Don't blame Russia for hitting back. Some will say, the U.S. should focus on domestic issues, stop being the world's police. I'm not going to tell you who's right, because if I do, this video dies halfway. But I want to hear your take. Write it below, debate it, attack the argument, not the person. And if you think this video opened your eyes to how fragile the world really is, share it with one person who needs to see it. Because sometimes what keeps us safe isn't just missiles and fighter jets. It's people who understand what's happening and refuse to stay silent.